Hello, my name is Jim. Welcome to my booktube channel about books, reading and stuff. Shawn the Book Maniac, in one of his rant videos, said, "When writers die and they have stuff unpublished, you shouldn't publish it." He was upset because Barbara Pym had a book, An Academic Question, published after she died. The book was unfinished when she died, and it was finished by one of her colleagues, Hazel Holt, who didn't do a very good job, according to Shawn. I don't know, I haven't read this, but he felt it damaged her legacy. He likes Barbara Pym usually, but he didn't like this book at all. And he thinks that if an author dies, you should leave the unpublished material alone and not publish it. What do you think about this? Would you say on the whole that posthumously published works enrich or impoverish our reader choices? Matthew of Mayberry Books made a response video to Shawn's original video. This was a couple of years ago. I'll link to both videos in the description. And he argued we would miss out on so much if we didn't have access to posthumously published works. Matthew suggested Shakespeare. There were no folio editions of Shakespeare published in his lifetime, and even the works that were published in Shakespeare's lifetime, he had no editorial input in those works. There's no indication that Shakespeare wanted his works available to the reading public. He was writing for the stage, and his works were designed to be performed. He wasn't interested in having his works published. I started thinking about this because I've got two books I'm currently reading that were both published posthumously. This was just a coincidence. They got me thinking. This, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, was published a long time after the author's death. He died in 1940 in the Soviet Union, and in Stalinist Soviet Union. This was a satire of the Soviet Union. This would be inadvisable to even let the authorities know it had been written, let alone try to push it forward for publication. It was finally published in 1966 in a Moscow magazine, and the full uncensored version was published in 1969. This is 29 years after the author died. He'd probably like to have had his work published. It was just because he was living in Stalinist Soviet Union that he couldn't. The story is about many things. Just over a third of the way through it. It's about the devil visiting the Soviet Union. It's a satire. The book I'm currently reading is this one, The Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. This was published 11 years after the author died. John Kennedy Toole tried to get this book published. It's a picaresque satire about a slothful central character, Ignatius, and a lot of colourful characters in the French Quarter of New Orleans. After his death, his mother found the manuscript and tried to persuade an author, who was Walker Percy, to get the manuscript published. It's interesting how the Confederacy of Dunces came into print. This was Walker Percy's account. The lady, that's Thelma, the mother of John Kennedy Toole, the lady was persistent, and it somehow came to pass that she stood in my office handing me the hefty manuscript. There was no getting out of it. Only one hope remained, that I could read a few pages and that they would be bad enough for me in good conscience to read no further. Usually I can do that. Indeed, the first paragraph often suffices. My only fear was that this one might not be bad enough, or might be just good enough, so that I would have to keep reading. In this case I read on and on. First with the sinking feeling that it was not bad enough to quit, then with a prickle of interest, then with growing excitement, and finally an incredulity. Surely it was not possible that it was so good. And the Pulitzer Prize. Judges decided it was so good and gave it the Pulitzer Prize in 1981 after it was already a cult classic. So 2 books I'm currently reading. There's some other books that were published posthumously. This one, Charles Dickens, The Mystery of Edwin Drood. A murder mystery, but Charles Dickens died before even revealing who the murderer was. So there could be some validation in not publishing this because we don't know what Charles Dickens wanted with the story. The books by Stieg Larsson around the girl with the dragon tattoo. This is the 3rd in the Millennium Trilogy. He died of a heart attack before they were published. Did he want them published? I don't know. But they became massive bestsellers and they launched a whole subgenre of Scandinavian noir on the world. And there's other things. This is Vincent by himself, the private letters of Vincent van Gogh that were sent to his brother Theo. These have been published posthumously. Should they have been published? Should any private letters or memoirs and diaries be published unless the author expressly wishes them to be published? I don't know. I don't have any definite answer. I think it depends, but I'm opening this for discussion. And of course, one of my favourite writers, Franz Kafka. None of the 3 novels he wrote, America, The Trial and The Castle, were published in his lifetime. He asked his friend Max Brod to burn his manuscripts. Max Brod didn't. So we now can enjoy Kafka. We have even the adjective Kafkaesque to describe crazy bureaucratic situations. Should Max Brod have listened to his friend and burnt his manuscripts? Or was he right to publish them so the world could know his genius? Emily Dickinson extracted a promise from her sister Lavinia to burn all her papers. Lavinia didn't. During her lifetime, Emily Dickinson was barely known. She only had 10 poems published. Lavinia, her sister, found a cache of 1,800 poems written by Emily Dickinson, and 4 years after Emily's death, she had them published. What are your thoughts on posthumous publication? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.